Mary Crane was the first of the 8 kids.
I was born at Asheville, Alabama. Well, it's really down in Slasham, but it was Asheville Route 1, I think. September the 25th, 1919. And I was the first child of 8. And we lived up in there until I was, I think, around 2 years old. Daddy moved to Sayre and started working in the coal mines. About 5 years old, that my grandmother and Grandma Rhodes lived at Gadsden, and we would, Daddy would get somebody. We didn't have a car to take us to Birmingham, and we'd catch a train to Gadsden, and that was just real exciting. And Granddaddy would meet us in his wagon, a 2-horse wagon, you know. And so anyway, we really enjoyed that, you know. But finally, in I don't know what year it was, Daddy got us a Model T Ford, you know. So we would go up there because they was old and sick, you know, every once in a while. And we would get, a lot of times we'd run into Granddaddy going home, you know, because he'd know we was coming, you know. He wouldn't let anybody but James ride in that wagon. We couldn't ride in it, me and Jean. It's just me and Jean James at that time. When I was in about the 2nd grade, we moved up on the mountain. It's called Carver's Place. It's up there where the Bagwell farms are now. And we lived on the farm. And Daddy truck farmed, and he worked at the coal mines 2 or 3 days a week, you know. And so, anyway, what he had left over had the best watermelons you've ever seen. He'd peddle them, go down around them other mining camps. He'd peddle them watermelons and corn or whatever he had, you know. And see, I was the oldest in the family, so I got to go with him quite a bit, you know. And I thought that was a real treat. You don't get to go with Daddy way off down there and sell watermelons and stuff. And he'd buy us Coca-Colas, you know, and stuff like that we didn't have around the house. I met Sam in 1935.
I was born out in the rural area from Lamar, Arkansas. March the 13th, 1913. I was my daddy's 13th child, and I had a few 13s attached to me. I'm not suspicious of them. We were very poor and sharecroppers, and actually there was 2 sets of kids there. My mother had married my daddy, and he already had some kids, and so I grew up out there, and I never had very much. Mom and Dad separated, and I had to stay with him and my sister, and I didn't like it. So I hit the trail. I rode a freight train from here to yonder all over the country. Worked wherever I could pick up a little job. And if I couldn't pick up a job, I kept traveling. One day I was in California, and I decided to go to Alabama. Having an uncle here, maybe I could get a job in the coal mine, and I did. I rode from the west coast to Alabama, got off a freight train in Birmingham, Alabama on November the 6th, 1934, early one morning, and finally got out to Margaret that day with $1.35 in my pocket.
The very first time I remember seeing him was down at they called it the dance pavilion down there at Margaret, you know. And every once in a while, about once a month, they'd have the pioneers to come down there. And I'd been begging Mama to go, you know, let us go. And so finally, I don't know how long we've been going together, she decided she'd go with us down there. So we went down there, and she'd always said, now, you can't dance. I mean, you don't dance. But I would go up to my friend's house, and she had a Victrola, so we'd dance, you know. So we got down there, and so they was dressed up in corduroy and all that kind of stuff, you know. And so I thought, in a little while, this fella come over, and he was over there around the band or something. And I thought it was one of the pioneers, but it was him. And he said, hey, you want to dance? And I said, I don't know how to dance, you know. It's round dancing, you know. And Mom says, well, why don't you go and dance? She thought he was one of the pioneers, I think. And I said, no, I'm not going to dance with you. But anyway, we married in 1936, August 22nd.
Never far from Mother and Daddy Wilson, Sam and Mary Crane began a family of their own, adding to the Wilson clan with the birth of their 3 children, Jeanette, Wilburn, and Curtis.
Jeanette, she married O.E. or Gene Crumpton November the 8th, 1957 at Bessemer. Wilburn Otis Crane Jr. was born June the 7th, 1944 in Bessemer. While he was in the Navy, Wilburn was born. And in 1969, February the 1st, he married Mildred Joanne Johnson. Curtis Wayne Crane was born February the 6th, 1947, and he married Annie Mae Flemings November the 15th, 1968. They had twin sons, Eric Wilburn and Scott Crane. And they were premature babies, 7 months, and Scott died 2 days later because of the hyaline membrane disease. And then in 1980, Curtis and Ann divorced. And then in January 26, 1985, Curtis married Joyce Olive, and they live in Birmingham, Alabama.
Sam and Mary Crane still live in Bessemer. They now have 3 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren. Gene Wilson is Embry and Annie Bell's 2nd child. He and his wife Evelyn live in Bessemer and have 2 grown children, a son Greg and a daughter Lori Jan. Gene was born in 1921 when the family lived in Asheville.
So we started this school at Odenville, Alabama, and I went I guess through the 8th grade up there. And then I got too smart to go to school. So I went to farming a little bit, and then I got me a job and went to work in the mines at 16. And I drove a mule in the mines at Margaret.
With World War II raging, each of the Wilson men of age served their duty.
Well, Uncle Sam decided he wanted me. So I got drafted. I didn't have a birth certificate, so I took a mother and we drove to New Orleans, and I joined the Coast Guard in October the 24th, 1942. So they finally called me in active duty in December the 16th. And I went into service and stayed 3 years and 3 months and so many days. And I came out and I went to work for Hercules. And I worked out there 37 years. I was engaged to another girl when I met her. Girl up in Baltimore. But you know, look there before I turned around. Here Evelyn stuck her nose up. I went and applied for a telephone. Who you think was behind the counter? Evelyn. And I wasn't going to even tell her I was coming home that time. So we had a hard road to get. We finally got around to getting married, and she got sick and got in the hospital. And let's see, that was
That was in
September, wasn't it?
September, Friday the 13th.
Yeah. Well, we finally got around to it October
46.
24th, 1946.
Well, I was born down in the country below Centerville,
I mean the country.
the real country. And I was the 8th child of my mother and daddy's. And I
Let's
guess
take some more.
I was born in 1926. And I guess I was spoiled because I was a baby. And I went to Catholic school the first year that I was supposed to go into school. A tornado leveled the school, and we had to go to a little old storehouse and sit on tobacco boxes for the first year until they got the new school built. And so I went through the 9th grade there, and then I went to Marion, to Perry County High School for the last 3 years. And I graduated in 1944. I came to Bessemer, and that's when I met Jean. And then Greg was born the 24th of October of 48. And then Ricky was born 2 years later. And he lived 7.5 months. And Lori was born April the 19th of 57.
Jean and Evelyn have shared the past 26 years in the same house, raising their children and building a family.
Oh, well, let me tell you about my grandchildren. We have 2 granddaughters. Andrea is 10, and Lauren is 2 years. And they live in St. Pete, Florida. And we don't get to see them as much as we'd like to, but we've seen them about 4 times already this year.